Guys, you all quieted down when I said, is everybody ready? Thank you. We're going to call this meeting to order and confirm that we do have a quorum. The Board of County Commission meeting for February 23rd, 2021 is being held in person. But this meeting may also be viewed in person at the BBC Chamber through SGTV, on YouTube, and by registering to participate in the Zoom webinar. Residents can provide public comment in person or by registering to speak on the county website and Board of County Commissioners webpage. There you will find a link to register for the webinar entitled Meeting/Webinar Registration and Helpful Hints. If you are unable to join us via computer online, interested parties should call 407-665-0808 for additional information on how to participate via telephone. We will take public comment on each item as it appears on the agenda. In order to be recognized to speak, if you are using a computer or iPad, you will need to use the raise hand feature on, or if calling in on a telephone, you will need to press *9. If you attend the meeting in person, you will be required to wear a mask and social distance. If you do not have a mask, one will be provided for you. And also, just like I'm doing at the same time, please turn off any cell phones and electronic devices. Pastor Alex Barrientos, is that how you say it? Close enough, I hope? Barrientos. I love that. Okay, Pastor from Spring Meadows Seventh-day Adventist Church in Sanford will provide the invocation this morning. Invocation, Pastor, please come on up to the podium, sir.
Our God, we thank you so much for another morning, which is to say, another morning of mercy. We thank you for your compassion. Thanking you for waking us up this morning. Thank you for the breath we have. And as we've come together to make decisions, to have dialogue, to manage, to project, we ask for protection. One, from ourselves, but also that you make us better for tomorrow. We ask, Lord, that you bless the community service decisions, the developmental services, for the environmental services, the fire department, its public works, the resource management and budgeting and planning. We ask, Lord, that you also be with the county attorney's office, with the constitutional officers, and the public hearings today. The ladies and gentlemen that are represented here as representatives of their own district, may you bless them and their families. May the decisions bring honor to you as well as to those around us. We ask for your wisdom, your guidance. Blessed be your name. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. We have two retirees in the audience today. I think one, Brent Holiday from the clerk's office, and Rich Maladecki from the Central Florida Hotel and Lodging Association. Will you both join us up here at the front and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Pastor. This morning we'll start off as we always do in this last year and pandemic year of 20 and 21 with our hero, Alan Harris. Alan?
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners, County Manager, County Attorney, members of the audience. Alan Harris, Chief Administrator for the Office of Emergency Management, has been almost a year now. The next time that we will meet, it has been a year. So give you a quick update on what's going on in the county since the last time we met. 29 additional fatalities, COVID fatalities, since the last time we met. Our current fatality count in Seminole County is 418 people have died from COVID. Since the last time we met, our current positive numbers, last time we met was 1,691. Today is 1,603. So that has not changed very much at all in the last 2 weeks. Isolated and quarantined in the home was 1,845 the last time we met. Today is 1,769. Again, not much change at all. We're seeing about 100 plus new cases each and every day. And of course, people drop off as people get well and things like that as well. Hospital count, last time I was with you, 78, today 74. So not much change there either. Testing, we continue to test in assisted living facilities and nursing homes. Our positivity rate did go down. So the requirement for testing in ALS and nursing homes has decreased slightly. But we are assisting the assisted living facilities and nursing homes with testing. Current residents in ALS and nursing homes with COVID, 61. That's just a little bit under what we were 2 weeks ago when we met. Staff, though, only 8 people have tested positive, staff in ALS and nursing homes. That could be a couple of reasons. Number one, we have touched we've touched at least once every one of our ALS and nursing homes with vaccine. Some now have received the second dose. So hopefully those numbers will start to improve over time. Vaccination efforts, of course, continue, but before I talk about vaccinations, it is important to remember that we are still doing everything else that we have been doing. We're still providing food to those that are isolated and quarantined. And in some cases, 50 to 100 food boxes each week to families with people that have COVID, so that they don't have to go to the grocery store, they don't have to go out. A lot of them are on low or fixed income, and again, we're working with our partners at Harvest Time International, the Christian Sharing Center, and those places to get those commodities out to those individuals that need that care. We're providing personal protective equipment to assisted living facilities and nursing homes where there are outbreaks, and there are a couple outbreaks in assisted living facilities and nursing homes. The vaccination efforts, though, hopefully will start to curb that. We are continuing to vaccinate people in ALS and nursing homes. It's not just a one-pass thing because people transition, people go from the hospital into an ALF and nursing home, so there's always new residents that are coming in. There are people transferring from out of the county into the county, so we want to make sure that any new people, whether they come from a hospital, or they come from the home, or whether they come from another county, that they have the same opportunity to get vaccinated as the individuals that have already been vaccinated in that facility. We are continuing our 4-prong approach to vaccinations. Our fixed pod at the Oviedo Mall, we are doing mobile sites. We were at Geneva just this last weekend on Saturday, and we are today in Jamestown again. So we're continuing to move around low fixed income communities, transportation disadvantaged communities, and other segments of the population. Total vaccinated to date, 51,199 Seminole County residents. So a little over 10% of our population, a little over 50% of our seniors 65 and older. So we are starting to make some strides. We still have quite a ways to go. Each week we receive our allotment of vaccine for the following week. We're waiting for our allotment. It's been shipped, but things have slowed down a little bit because of the freeze in other parts of the country. But this week looks to be the same as the last couple weeks. 4,680 doses of vaccine coming into the county this week. That's clearly not enough when we start to get into the next priority group, when instead of 75,000, which is our 65 and older crowd, if we start to go into other groups like teachers, law enforcement officers, 911 operators, and other folks with immune compromised conditions, comorbidities, things like that, you could be talking in the hundreds of thousands of individuals. We will need more vaccine than that. But we are continuing our efforts at Oviedo. We're continuing our efforts at the mobile pod. And then we are continuing our homebound visits. So we've done over 600 individuals inside of their homes. Those are people that are bedbound. Those are people that just simply can't leave their house for some reason. Maybe they have gone through, are going through cancer treatment programs. Their doctor gives them authorization to vaccine, but we don't want to bring them to a pod because they are certainly immune compromised while they're going through that treatment. So we send community paramedics either through our fire department or the health department out to their home to provide vaccine to their home. That concludes my report. I know you have a lot on your agenda today, but if anyone has any questions.
Mr. Chairman?
But nothing more important than your report, Alan, and thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions of Alan?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have one question. Alan, great job, as always. Any update on the variances that are coming into this country?
Sure. So the UK variant is present here in Seminole County. We just sent off some tests, our positive tests that we received from our last community-based testing site. Unfortunately, those results haven't come back because they had to go up north, and then they got stuck in the freeze. So they are still good, they're still viable, but we haven't got that result back. I'm hoping to, when I get that result back, and I'll make sure that I copy all of you to let you know what that percentage looks like. The city of Altamont Springs has been doing a study on wastewater. They are seeing quite a bit of that variant in the stream. UK variant has been well known to be higher transmission, which could be why we're seeing some of the things that I just mentioned, that it's not going down like it was. We expected the holidays to be high, and it was. But then we expected a decline. And you just heard from me that the decline over the last 2 weeks is less than 80 people on a daily basis. So that's not the decline we were hoping for. So that could be the UK variant. Right now, there's not as much information out about the Brazilian or the South African variant. What we do know, though, is that the Pfizer and Moderna look very good for those variants. And also the Johnson & Johnson one, even though the percentage of immunity is less, it is important to note that that was tested on the South African variant. So it's not really comparing apples to apples. Sometimes people are saying, oh, I want to go get the Pfizer, not the Johnson & Johnson. When the Johnson & Johnson comes out, I don't want that. Well, that's not, we're not really judging those apples to apples. Pfizer and Moderna was never tested against the South African variant, although it is showing good results. Both appear to be relatively the same. So when the Johnson & Johnson comes out, if we have the opportunity to get Johnson & Johnson, we'll get anything, because 4,680 vaccines a week is not enough to cover 500,000 people here in Seminole County.
Thank you, Alan. I just want to make sure that people are aware that you are planning for the variances, and I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
people understand that, as always, you're very proactive.
Nice.
Thank you.
Commissioner, go right ahead.
I'm always fascinated to get the emails from Altamont when they talk about how the fact that they can see in our wastewater stream that they can kind of predict the future, if you will, or the past.
The future, really.
yeah.
It does look at the future.
Yeah. And I'm curious, data is great, and it's very intriguing, and talking about the different variants is intriguing, and I'd be curious to know from your executive advisory team that you pull together what they would be recommending to us as a board that we do differently in terms of the mitigation efforts that we already have in place based on those increases or decreases. When you're a data geek, you like to see how things are going up and down, and it makes for interesting conversation. But ultimately, what I would like to know from the group is what would they be seeking from us to do differently in terms of executive orders, managing the community, what type of mitigation efforts change. And right now, I don't know that I know that there are any, quite honestly. So if you could run that by them and see
Sure.
what that would look like, I'd appreciate that.
And we do talk about that a lot. And so from the executive, I'll talk about the executive medical advisory group first, which is all the chief medical officers of all the hospitals, our medical director, the Department of Health medical director, of course, the director of the health department, as well as the senior epidemiologist. Most everything is the same. There is, of course, the double mask. encouragement that's out there right now. That's really on the medical side. They say, please keep doing exactly what you're doing. It is, the CDC suggests, and so, the White House medical team, multitudes of medical, John Hopkins, the double mask definitely for the UK variant is very important. On the executive advisory group, status quo, don't change anything at this point. We still have to do the mitigation efforts that we are currently doing to make sure that the number doesn't go from 1,600 to 2,000 and 3,000, et cetera, which could happen if we don't have those measures in place.
Right. And I'm not suggesting that we would remove some of those mitigation efforts at this time. I'm asking what additional things might they see us wanting to do if there are increases. When we ask staff, pull together all the data, and everybody runs around, and y'all do a fabulous job of pulling together all the data, and then we look at it and go, oh, wow, that's interesting. And I want to know what we're going to do with it. Are we going to do something with it? Or I just don't want to go through the machinations without an end game.
The only real difference is the double masking. I mean, other than that, it's the same, stay home if you're sick, hand washing regularly, the facial masking covering, social distancing, things like that, the mitigation efforts. And
the mitigation measures that we've put through our executive orders are based on the recommendation of the healthcare providers and our medical director and Donna Walsh over at the health department. So the data really goes to them, and we look to them for feedback, because neither Alan and I are experts on, or any of the other people really in the executive committee other than Dr. Husty are experts in mitigating any sort of medical issue. So we really rely on them and get the data to them. You mentioned the waste stream testing, and I was going to brief you on it this afternoon, and I'm going to put Terry on the spot in case you have some technical questions about it. Because as he shared with all of you previously, we've been working with the city of Altamont Springs to do some of that testing in our own facilities. We were also working with the sheriff. He was very interested in doing testing at the jail. Unfortunately, we don't think at this time we're able to isolate the waste stream coming directly from the jail, so we're not sure the data would be all of that, that it would be truly reflective of just the jail population. So we're still trying to work with him on that, find a way to do that. But we're going to bring on 2 of our plants and start testing using the Altamont methodology, and they've been able to get us into their lab. Terry had attempted to try to get, several months ago, he wanted to start the testing, and we couldn't get into a lab. So we're going to use Altamont's lab and their methodology, and we're going to start testing at our facilities to get the data. The data is sent to the healthcare providers, and it is not the only tool that they use, but it is a tool that they use. It's just another data set. We also think that the data will be very useful sort of after the event to start correlating and to help develop opportunities for addressing. Hopefully, we won't ever have to, but addressing pandemics or any other sort of crisis like this in the future. So that will start. I think Terry's planning on starting this week or next week. Like I said, I'm sorry to put him on the spot, because we were going to talk about it this afternoon, just to brief you on it and let you know we were getting started, because I know it's something that he's talked with all of you about previously and briefed you on the opportunity to get that data from our own systems.
Good morning. For the record, Terry McHugh, Director, Environmental Services Department. Yes, I'm confirming with Altamont this morning that we can start testing as early as next week is my intention. And as I see it, we owe it as a public service to work with the public health community to be able to provide information that can help guide decision making. And being able to give up to a week's advance notice, here's a spike in the virus load in the influent wastewater stream, and letting people know that there's a possibility of increased hospitalization needs is an important thing to do. And not just for this pandemic, but also for future issues or problems that there might arise. So being able to go to school on this experience now, I think, is a worthy effort. And teaming with Altamont Springs, so not only have they been doing it for more than a year, but I also like working with other municipalities to build relationships. So I'm fully supportive of this initiative.
Thank you, Terry.
I guess it's the guiding decision-making piece that I'm asking about.
Sure.
If it's guiding decision-making, I'd like to know how it is guiding decision-making. And that doesn't have to be answered right now.
Yeah.
I'd like, I think that's a legitimate question.
And maybe we could get the hospitals in, hospital representatives in to talk to you about how they use that, or even Dr. Husty could come in and share with you. Because we are not internally using it. There aren't any numbers in here that influence mine or Alan's decisions or any of the decisions that we're making at a county level, but we are sharing the data with the healthcare providers and acting on their recommendations as we have from the beginning.
One of the things that Commissioner Zimbauer knows, because he was on them last year, is that once a week we have an executive phone call in which all the cities and the health providers are on. And the last thing that Alan says at that time is, here are the executive orders we have. Are there any changes that need to be made based upon the information that we have today? So all of the information that we are getting is being analyzed, provided to the various groups, and then they, in turn, make a decision as to whether or not they feel any changes need to be made on the executive.
And likewise, there is discussion and debate amongst those members and dialogue that continues to ultimately decide what should change or may not change based on the existing executive orders and what new information may come to bear and what we should or should not be considering on changes of any of those.
And quite frankly, recently, there hasn't been any debate.
Right.
Yeah. Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one more question for Alan. Thank you, Terry. And again, I'm not looking for an answer today. I just want to make sure that I know it's on your radar because that's what you do. You put a lot of things on the radar. With these variances, there are potentially some issues with the most vulnerable populations that are out there, especially the ones that are homebound. And I just want to make sure that we're addressing it with the variances and/or first responders or 911. So that's it.
Go ahead, Alan.
We will, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just,
I thought that was-
you wanted an
It
answer.
was just a statement.
Yes.
I'm not looking for a response.
Right, I didn't think you were, so my nod was, yes, I understand.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up and thank you, and also thank you to our fire department. In my district this weekend in Geneva was the vaccine site, which I spent a little bit of time out there, and everybody was just happy as clams could be, getting in and out, and good work as usual, very much like the Oviedo process, but in a much smaller setting. Very efficient in getting folks in and out. I think we have a lot to be proud of there. So thank you, and thank you, Chief, for making your firefighters available to work there as well and administering the vaccine. We appreciate it.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Commissioner.
I just wanted to make a statement that there is a little bit of misinformation, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, in the community, in that Eventbrite is the only mechanism for getting an appointment. We have, with multiple departments here, stood up a call center that actually can help folks. So there is a lot of chatter with underserved communities that we have not done that, but we have in fact done that. So if you asked my opinion on what we can do differently, it's around communicating very openly the fact that we do have alternatives to the online system available for folks that don't have internet access or aren't computer savvy enough to do that. And that crosses all socioeconomic, particularly in the 65 and older. I would also plead that anyone that is in the orbit of someone that doesn't have internet access or can't do it, that qualifies as 65 and older, help them, sign them up. I think that's incumbent upon the community to get folks vaccinated. So I think there's an outreach that we can be doing, just like I'm doing right now, in terms of just talking to each other and offering to help people to get signed up.
Excellent, excellent suggestion. Well, if no one has any further questions, Alan, get back to the good work. Thank you very much. Okay, we now have our county manager on the COVID relief update. Nicole?
I'm going to try to share my screen with you. All right. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on our sort of CARES 2 assistance program. This is the emergency rental assistance program that we've talked about the last couple of meetings. The funding was through the Appropriation Act that was approved by Congress in December. We are making progress on it. As I've shared with you before, we've received $14 million, a little over $14 million. We have the money in hand for this program. Unlike the CARES Act money, it is not funneled through the state. It came directly to us. And this program will provide rental assistance, and rental assistance only, not mortgage assistance like we were able to do through the CARES Act. It will provide up to 12 months of assistance. We do have the opportunity to provide an additional 3 months if there's funding available, and if we determine there's a need to do that to ensure housing stability. Priority under the act must be given to addressing rent that is in arrears. And all of that, the rent and arrears will have to be rectified with any applicant before we can do any prospective assistance. We can do prospective assistance in 3-month increments. So we can do up to 12 months for any rent that was arrears as of March 13th, which was when the executive order was signed of last year. And then we can do 3 months prospectively. And folks can continue to apply for assistance. They can get 3 months and then come back and apply for another 3 months for as long as the program is in effect, which is through December 31st. We have started to stand up the Ernst & Young portal. The call center opened last week. Yesterday, the pre-registration system opened. We, at this point, have 567 people registered yesterday, pre-registered yesterday. So there is an interest, and certainly we know there is a need out there. The actual portal itself for applications will go live on March 1st. We had 140 people that we were continuing to work with. As you'll recall, we had a rental assistance program and an eviction relief program that was funded with SHIP funds that ended. The program expired at the end of last year, and we had 140 households that we were continuing to work with. So we've been working with them to get them lined up to get assistance through this program. So we've already got 140 households that we're working with in addition to this 567 that pre-registered yesterday. As I indicated, the funds must be expended by the end of the year. They have to be committed by the end of September. So we need to have everybody approved and lined up by then. So this, unlike the CARES Act assistance program, has an income qualification requirement. Additionally, as I said, it's only renters, and they have to demonstrate a need, which was part of the original CARES Act individual assistance program. And they have to either qualify for unemployment or demonstrate that they have had some other sort of financial hardship as a result of COVID-19. You can see in the bottom of the screen, and I've given all of you a hard copy of this as well, and we'll send an electronic copy to your office so that you have this for your reference. The income criteria for the 80% of area median income is lined out at the bottom there, so you can see for a family of 4, that's a median household income of a little over $58,000. There's about 60% of our households fall within that category. There is some language in the legislation that requires us to give priority to certain groups, folks who have been unemployed for 90 days or more, as well as folks that fall at 50% below or at 50% of the median annual median income for the community. And then the next group would be the 51 to 80%, and then the third priority would be folks that have already received funding through the CARES Act. So as you know, we're partnering with Ernst & Young again. They've been doing the portal development, call center service, as well as the level 1 application review. We will be handling the more involved review. We have brought in, I think, 15 temporary workers to start with, as well as a supervisor to help try to relieve some of the stress that the original individual assistance program placed on our community service staff. So we have gotten some office space set up next to the existing community services offices. We were very lucky to get space in that building, and have that team, standing up that team right now, so they'll be ready to go. And then Ernst & Young will continue to keep the data. There's a lot of data that we have to keep for Treasury, so Ernst & Young will help us with that as well. We do have a contract in the works with them. Steve Fussell has been heading that up for us. It will be paid for out of the administrative part of the federal funding for this program. We will bring back an agenda item for you to ratify. We needed to go ahead and get started on it. We did the same thing when we did the CARES Act program as well, so just want you to know that that will be coming down the pike. If you gave me the thumbs up at the last meeting, but I'll ask for another thumbs up at the end of this meeting, just as belt and suspenders. We have been doing a significant amount of outreach. We will continue to do that. I think that's evidenced by the 567 folks that we had sign up in our first day of pre-registration. We will continue to work not only with individuals, but also with landlords. Under this program, landlords can apply on behalf of the tenants, like we did, we had established this criteria in our individual assistance program under the CARES Act. Payments will go directly to the landlord. This legislation actually specifies that that needs to happen. If for some reason there is a landlord that's not cooperative, then we can work around that. But the legislation specifically directs payments to landlords. The other thing that I didn't mention is, in addition to rental assistance, we can provide utility assistance as well. And again, those payments will go directly to the utility provider. We're still trying to get our brains wrapped around the guidance. There was new guidance issued yesterday. As with the CARES Act, we expect that it will be an evolving process, but we feel that we got into a groove with CARES Act, and I think this will be it'll be a lot of work because of the income qualification. There's a lot more documentation that's required with this program. But we're very comfortable that we're going to be able to get the assistance out and get the $14 million out well in advance of the deadline of this. We do have some other funding programs through CARES. There's some CDBG funding and some other funds that are good through next year. We're looking at using some of those to provide mortgage assistance, since we can't do mortgage assistance through this program. So as we sort of wade through those and get those figured out, we'll report back to you on what those opportunities are as well. I'll answer any questions you have.
Questions? Commissioner Zimbauer, then Commissioner Hurd.
The program set forth, the grant assistance has federal guidelines that have to be adhered to, correct?
Yes, sir.
We can't change that as a governing body?
No, not. We can set up some program parameters, but like how we will determine the priority folks, but they've told us who the priority folks are.
Sure, yeah, I've read it.
Yeah, so.
It's pretty clear who gets it and who
Yes,
doesn't, and
yeah,
how
so,
we're penalized
I
if
mean,
we don't adhere to it.
Yeah, we'll have to pay back any money that's not consistent, that's not distributed consistent with the Treasury guidance and with the legislation. We'll have to pay back to Treasury.
Right. And so you want to bring back for us to ratify what portion of your?
The contract with Ernst & Young.
Okay.
So that'll come back to you. We did the same thing with the CARES Act. We just needed to
Right.
get the ball moving. So,
Sure.
and as I said, that will be paid for out of the administrative portion of this
Okay.
legislation.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner?
Thank you. So last bullet, slide 2, we use the terminology "in general." Funds will be paid directly to landlords and utility service providers. And the comment was that if you have an uncooperative landlord, which is somewhat hard to imagine in this scenario. So do we have really well-written guidelines around what "in general" means?
So in general is directly from the Treasury guidance. So that's their words. They do give some examples of the documentation that we would have to provide to show that we were unable to get the landlord to cooperate. The landlords have to submit some documentation as well, like 1099s or I don't know I can't remember what the number was, but there was some document that we had difficulty getting last go around. So if we have difficulty getting that documentation, we certainly don't want somebody to get evicted. So it is very clear that they expect the payments to go to the landlord and go to the utility company, but they also recognize that there may be circumstances where a landlord, for whatever reason, isn't going to provide documentation, isn't going to be cooperative, as the guidance says. But there is some language in the guidance that tells us what we need to do to document that. But yeah, I found the words in general kind of interesting, because that is directly from the Treasury guidance.
So in general, I really, really hope that we're standing up the 15 temps that we've hired to be able to handle the public with regard to what that means. So that's where I mean, we need to be scripted. We need to be very cautious around this, because I think people will be confused.
Well, we were very, the CARES Act criteria didn't require us to pay directly to landlords, and we were very adamant about that because we thought that was the best practice. So Carrie and her crew have been dealing with that pushback, because there has been pushback. There have been folks who think it's just a sort of a stimulus check and just give us
Right.
our money. So I don't think that that's an unfamiliar challenge that they've had. But yeah, it's a very good point that that the temps need to be
Scripted.
scripted. Yes,
my word.
that's great. That's a
In
great
general.
idea.
Commissioner Lockhart, then Commissioner Zimbauer.
So I had an opportunity to visit with Community Services last week and see the stand-up facility for these folks to work out of, and shout out to Pam Martin and her team for doing a great job throwing that together.
See, it's the old county attorney's office.
Yeah, things look very different down there right now, but it's great. One of the things that I asked about when I was there is, because I keep thinking about the fact that we have pulled not just Alan and his team off of their regular last year, but almost every department in this county has been pulled from their core mission. And one of the things that I'm still very anxious to hear about is the plan to get as many people working back in their core mission as possible. And if it means hiring more temps so that they can focus on the COVID stuff, and I'm not saying, I don't want to say people are drowning, because I think that's an exaggeration of the assessment, because I think they're all doing very, very well given the circumstances. But I am really concerned about burnout. And again, not just for Alan's team. IT is stretched very, very thin, and there's not a department that isn't stretched very, very thin right now. So I know I asked for a plan back in January, and I want to ask for it again. I just want to know how we're going to get as many people back to their core mission as possible, as quickly as possible. And-
And I think we all feel that way. We all feel fatigue. We didn't know we were going to have this money until December, so it's kind of, we're learning as we go, but I understand what you're saying about plan.
Thank you.
Commissioner Zimbauer?
I just wanted to make a comment on in general, contrary to what people may think. I actually sit around and watch committee meetings on C-SPAN and watch a lot of this. And there was actually a very interesting debate over that exact topic. And it was brought up in quite a bit of debate and discussion about the what ifs. This happens, what if that, and what appeared to me was they really were trying to get the money in the right hands, but there was this whole conversation about what if the landlord is in the hospital, or maybe it's in receivership, or maybe this and maybe that, and the people are sitting there not knowing what to do. And they had this whole discussion, well, what do we do? And they said, well, put a provision. In general, this is the goal. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. But then you read the documents, and it doesn't say anything about the background discussion and what that meant. So I think the whole goal, my observation was, they truly wanted to try to get the people on the street the help, regardless of what the circumstance might be with the property owner or land. And then there was a whole discussion about trusts and gaining access to trustees and all this other kind of stuff, and trying to track down those people when things are in either some litigation matter or so forth, not to put people out on the street. So that was very interesting.
So a lot of that, I think, is reactive, not knowing, diving into, and like I think all of us know, and I've said all along, we know some things about this COVID and the impact it's had and some of the unintended consequences, but there's a whole lot we don't know. And when we have people at the federal and state level sending things our way, we have to shift gears quickly and adapt to what those guidelines and demands are placed upon us. So I think that just some patience overall as we work ultimately through this. I think we all would agree we'd like to be over yesterday. I'd like to get rid of all these plexiglass little things here where everybody looks distorted like in a fishbowl. But the public in general, you can feel the tension in the air. You can see it when you go out in public. People are walking on eggshells. People are on the cusp of just losing it in some circumstances. You see it at the grocery stores when people are arguing with each other and so forth. So I think we just got to take a deep breath and work our way through it. I think we'll ultimately get there. But I think Seminole County's done a far superior job than some of the other counties around us. And of course, we don't have the population some of the others do, but I think staff's done a good job.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, County Manager. We really appreciate the hard work of you and your entire staff on this. We're going to go into proclamations, awards, and presentations right now. A couple of changes I just did want to let you know. The flag that was going to be presented was actually flown for the city of Castleberry up at the Capitol in Washington through U.S. Senator Rick Scott's office. The presenters were not aware of that at first, and that's why they asked for the presentation here. They will reevaluate and make the presentation at the city of Castleberry. So that is off the agenda. I know that just a few others, when we talk about proclamations, Commissioner Zimbauer, you asked, and others also about the school superintendent. We are working on that one. Mr. Cecil Tucker, who a prominent citizen here in Seminole County, who passed earlier last year. Mr. Epps, that will be on the agenda next month, on the 23rd. And the city manager of Sanford, Mr. Bonaparte, has asked for a 100-year resolution for the Sanford Rotary, and if it's all okay with everyone,
Absolutely.
I will put that and ask the county manager to prepare that at the appropriate date. And with that, yes.
There was a request that I know came into my office and Commissioner Herr's office for a National Women in Construction Month resolution, and I don't know if that made its
Do
way
we
to
get to
you
wear
or
hard
not.
hats?
Sure. Yeah, whatever floats your boat.
No, if you would like that, we will.
Is
Happy.
that, I don't know if that was, okay, that would be great.
Okay.
We'll work with
All right.
staff on that.
No, without objection?
I think that's been done in the past.
It has.
Without objection, we will also ask the staff to prepare that resolution. Any others while we're talking about it?
I've had a request in by my office for Mr. Rocky Harrelson, Veteran of the Month consideration.
Okay, well, send that through the Veterans Office, because they're the ones that prepare that. I've done that in the past also, and magically, the person that I suggested popped up in a couple of months later, so that would be great. Last meeting in January, we had the recognition of First Sergeant Philip Cornell. He was unable to attend, but I do believe that he is here today. Great. Good to see you, Mr. Cornell, and thank you for your service. Commissioner Herr, you are recognized for the resolution.
Thank you, Chairman. We are delighted to have you here. This is a proclamation of the Seminole County Board of County recognizing First Sergeant Philip Cornell, United States Army, retired, for his outstanding service to the United States and Seminole County. Whereas the brave men and women of our Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Space Force demonstrate a resolute spirit and unmatched selflessness, reminding us there are few things more American than giving of ourselves to make a difference in the lives of others. And whereas throughout our country's history, generations of service members have answered the call to leave their families, their jobs, and put their futures and even their lives on the line to valiantly defend our nation and its inalienable rights. And whereas, for many service members, that sacrifice has ended in permanent injury or death, yet their spirit remains in the continued preservation of our freedoms and the promise of liberty. And whereas today, there are more than 30,000 living veterans in Seminole County who served our nation in times of peace and war, many of them willingly entered harm's way to fight for our freedoms. By their service, they kept America strong, and they have protected our way of life from tyranny's grip for over 2 centuries. At this moment, men and women in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, and Space Force are serving around the world. They represent our resolute dedication to achieving a lasting peace despite the new challenges and threats of the 21st century. Whereas First Sergeant Philip Cornell entered the service in 1987 as an armored crewman. He served in all positions with the tank crew from tank driver to first sergeant. His operational assignment was a master gunner, training developer, and operations sergeant. Whereas First Sergeant Philip Cornell served with the 1st Infantry Division's 3rd Brigade and Danger Forward Brigade in Stuttgart, Germany. He ran border patrols along the East German border and participated in Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Whereas First Sergeant Philip Cornell deployed for Operations Desert Fox, which led to Operation Iraqi Freedom. He served with the 464 AR Tuskers from 2003 to 2006 for 2 tours in Iraq as a platoon sergeant and military training team member. His platoon participated in the rapid advancement through Iraq and final capturing of Saddam Hussein's 4-headed palace in downtown Baghdad. Whereas First Sergeant Philip Cornell awards include the Purple Heart, 1 Oak Leaf Cluster, Bronze Star Medal with 2 Oak Leaf Clusters, Meritorious Service Medal with 3 Oak Leaf Clusters, and an Army Commendation Medal with 4 Oak Leaf Clusters. He is a member of the Audie Murphy Club and holder of the Order of St. George Bronze Medal. Whereas First Sergeant Philip Cornell has worked in the telecommunications industry as a contract engineer and later as an engineer for CenturyLink. He currently serves as a construction project manager in the Central Florida area. He is actively pursuing his master's degree in history at the University of Central Florida. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, Florida, express our gratitude, admiration, and respect for First Sergeant Philip Cornell, United States Army, retired, for his outstanding service to the United States and residents of Seminole County. Be it further proclaimed that this proclamation to be presented to First Sergeant Philip Cornell, United States Army, along with our sincere congratulations and recognition as Seminole County's Veteran of the Month, adopted the 26th day of January 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Mr. Cornell, please join us up at the front. Yes, absolutely. You too. I quit at 86. Yes, is that good or bad? Okay, as long as you're not a Seminole fan, that's a major important part. I wanted to meet you folks. Commissioner, I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, that's why I keep that to myself. I appreciate it. Oh, okay, that's somebody to help me with protocol here. Oh, you can work it. Oh, okay. I've done these before, photo ops. Oh, he
Went to get his mask.
running around to get my mask.
I appreciate it. They make leashes for this thing.
I know.
set? All right. Ready? In 3, 2, 1. Yes.
I didn't even know if I was smiling or not.
Yes.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Actually, I'd like to thank... No. Oh. Thank you, sir. In the fish tank. In the fish tank. Yeah. Exactly.
Chairman, Commissioners, I appreciate it. I guess I can lose this. Obviously, I got a big voice that's from 30 years in the Army, so I'm not very good with microphones. I apologize. Mostly, I'd like to thank the individual that recommended me. Please surprise, so I take that as a compliment in and amongst itself. And also, I'd like to, shout out to everybody that's been dealing with all the craziness going on. Chairman, I think you mentioned it. And the Commissioner, people are getting kind of, want to get on with their lives and get back to that. But all said and done, I want to emphasize, I think most of our veterans and the spouses and family members served in silence. Most folks just want to come back and get on with their lives, and I think that's a credit to all those folks that came before me and that are going to go before me. So with that said, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much for the proclamation, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank
Go-
you.
Thank you.
Go Lyman, go Knights.
There you go.
Brantley. Couple things you don't forget about.
Old rivalries die hard.
They don't die easy.
They don't.
And thank you very much, Commissioner Herf, for that reading. I appreciate it, and so do we all. So, Philip, thank you very much. Also, on February, Veteran of the Month, we have recognized Specialist Technician, 4th grade, Richard Maffa, and Commissioner Lockhart will do the recognition.
Commissioners, I'd like to move the following proclamation of the Board of County Commissioners recognizing Specialist Technician 4th grade Richard Maffa, United States Army, for his outstanding service to the United States and Seminole County. Whereas the brave men and women of our Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Space Force demonstrate a resolute spirit and unmatched selflessness, reminding us there are few things more American than giving of ourselves to make a difference in the lives of others. And whereas throughout the country's history, generations of service members have answered the call to leave their families, their jobs, and put their futures and even their lives on the line to valiantly defend our nation and its inalienable rights. And whereas for many service members that sacrifices ended in permanent injury or death, yet their spirit remains in the continued preservation of our freedoms and the promise of liberty. And whereas Specialist Richard A. Maffa served in the United States Army from November 5, 1965 through October 29, 1967. He attended basic training at Fort Gordon, Georgia, and completed his advanced infantry training at Fort Riley, Kansas. He was assigned to the 9th Infantry Division. His unit was selected for an overseas assignment in the Republic of Vietnam. Mr. Maffa was subsequently transferred to the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment, where he completed his tour from December 1966 to October 1967. And whereas Specialist Richard A. Maffa served honorably in the United States Army for 2 years, he was awarded the National Defense Medal, the Vietnam Campaign Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, Marksman Badge, and Combat Infantryman Badge for his service in combat operations in Vietnam. He attained the rank of Specialist 4, and whereas Specialist Richard A. Maffa went to work for American Airlines as a fleet service clerk and crew chief, where he retired after 30 years. After retiring, he became a commercial bus driver for senior living facilities in both Longwood and Oviedo, transporting seniors to appointments, where he received multiple safety awards and was recognized as Employee of the Month. And whereas Specialist Richard A. Maffa currently is a local business owner, where he is well known for providing transportation services to senior citizens who without him would be unable to leave their residences. Now therefore be it proclaimed that we, the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, Florida, express our gratitude, admiration, and respect for Specialist Technician 4th grade Richard A. Maffa for his outstanding service to the United States and residents of Seminole County. Be it further proclaimed that this proclamation be presented to Specialist Technician, 4th grade, Richard A. Maffa, along with our sincere congratulations and recognition as Seminole County's Veteran of the Month. Adopted this 23rd day of February 2021.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Mr. Maffa, are you here? Come on up, sir. Thank you.
Ready? In 3, 2, 1.
Please feel free to say something.
When Kathy Schubert called me about this, I was really astonished. You know, the Vietnam War was not very popular in the United States with a lot of people. And I found that out on October 27th in San Francisco Airport, where I was going to get a flight to New York, my home. Two guys came up to me and started hassling me. Some woman came by and stopped him and said, "Leave him alone," and pushed him away. She was a strong woman, a tough woman, like my wife. And I found out Walter Cronkite show, news in New York, that there was so much anti-war going on that we were baby killers and stuff like that. But the years went by, and I always thought about Vietnam and about what my friends that I lost, my cousin I lost. But then in 2017, in June, a friend of mine was a Korean veteran, and he said to me, "You have to go on the honor flight." And he talked to me all about what it was about. And he says, if there's an opening. Well, there was no opening until a couple of days before when somebody had to cancel. So I was the only Vietnam vet on that flight because most of the World War II people are leaving, so they were Korean, and I was the only Vietnam vet. Well, that was one of the best days of my life. Going through that airport in Orlando and Baltimore, Washington International was astonishing. The cheers, the parade, the flags, bagpipes, and we had a police escort to Washington Memorial. I think it was I-95 or 295, so much traffic. We had police escort, they're shooting the cars over on the street to get the bus down to the memorial, because we were only there for a day. And it was just fantastic. And I recommend, if you know anybody in the military, to go on the honor flight when they start it again, when we get rid of this COVID. But it was the best day of my life, and I finally felt welcome home. And this is the icing on the cake. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome home. Mr. Maffa, that was truly touching. And as someone who had a older cousin in the Marines that served in Vietnam and didn't come back, thank you very, very much. Okay. Now we're going to a resolution of a very good friend of many of us. We're recognizing Mr. Richard Maledecchi for 23 years of service to the tourism industry in Seminole County and all of Central Florida. Commissioner Delory, would you please give us the honor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And for me, this resolution is bittersweet. Bitter because of all the things that Rich has done over the years, not just for tourism, but for Central Florida. He was the tip of the spear to do so many toy drives and scholarship drives for all of Central Florida with the hoteliers. He has been an advocate many times of protecting and promoting tourism throughout all of Central Florida, not just one county. And his partnership and helping all of us with the research to promote tourism surely goes unmatched. And Rich, just that you know, I'm wearing the ECNL mask today because that's one of the sports tourism events that you brought to Central Florida. And it's sweet because I'm curious to see what you're going to be doing on your spare time now and what that next chapter is, and I wish you well. You've been a dear friend to all of Central Florida and all of sports tourism, as well as all hoteliers. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to read the following resolution of the Board of County Commissioners honoring the contribution of Rich Maledecchi in Seminole County, Florida. Whereas Seminole County formally recognizes Rich Maledecchi, President of the Central Florida Hotel Lodging Association, for his dedication in advancing tourism in Seminole County for over the last 23 years. And whereas the President and CEO of the world's largest regional lodging association, Rich has been responsible for managing a 50-member board of directors consisting of lodging general managers and tourism industry executives. And whereas over the 40 years of executive nonprofit experience, Rich Maledecchi has held leadership positions in a diverse group of association. And whereas Rich Maledecchi began his career in several roles at the Junior Achievement, and since that time he served as the executive director of the Electrical Association of Philadelphia and as the president of Parents, Inc. And whereas in 1995, Rich Maledecchi published a 180-page book of the practical ideas and insight for nonprofit managers, Inlights, Bits, Tits, and Power Points. And whereas in 2001, Rich Maledecchi earned the prestigious Certificate Association Executive designation from the American Society of Executives. And whereas in 2015 and 16, the Central Florida Hotels Lodging Association earned the distinction as the best managed Central Florida trade association by the Orlando Business Journey. And whereas throughout his years as the president, Rich Maledecchi has been a passionate advocate for the advancing tourism and earmarking the use of hotel bed tax exclusively for marketing and growing tourism. And whereas in 2013, Rich Maledecchi has included in the Central Florida Hospitality Hall of Fame. And whereas Rich Maledecchi has been active in earning the Seminole County hotelier leaderships in training a well-versed in importance of local government's affairs. And whereas Rich Maledecchi has been the driving force in the conjunction of many current and past county commissioners to endorse the growth of youth sports and facilities of our county. And whereas Seminole County has always considered Rich Maledecchi as the voice of Seminole County hoteliers, but has also become a friend to the county. And whereas he's unselfish promoting of tourism and the county leadership for over 2 decades, now therefore be resolved that the Board of County Commissioners acknowledges and appreciates the outstanding leadership provided to Seminole County tourism by Rich Maledocki and commends him for his dedication, service, and commitment, adopted this 23rd day of February 2001.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Maledecki, could you join us?
Come down, please.
Sure, please. Frank and the others, whoever's here.
Frank, Bruce, Jamie, anyone else in the audience? Don't be bashful.
It is, please, ladies.
Ready? In 3, 2, 1. Okay, don't move.
It's always efficient. You know, Rich brings his own photographer.
Don't tell you, don't tell your involved.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. Oh, yeah.
I'd like to say a few words. Keep it short.
You're right, this is a fishbowl Sheffield.
You're in there.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, Rich, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, I am very humbled by this presentation and this recognition. It's been a long journey. I've loved every minute of it. I've enjoyed, and I appreciate that the resolution cited past members of the Seminole County Board as well as the current 5 members. I agree with Commissioner Delary, a lot of friendships. And just want to say thank you very much. I want to also say thank you to my Seminole County partners from Tricia Johnson, Guy, Danny. These individuals have been representing you and helping the tourism industry here in Seminole County and working with our lodging executives. I want to also recognize the Tourist Development Council for all their good efforts. You know, I'm originally from Detroit. As the commissioner indicated, I worked in Philadelphia for 10, 12 years. The nicety of Central Florida is the spirit of collaboration. We understand and respect partnerships, and we've done so much in the years to truly advance our community, our schools, and in my case, the tourism industry. So thank you very, very much for this honor. It's greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Rich. I'll never forget when Rich Maledecki would come up to Tallahassee, everybody would start getting very worried about what was going on up there. So it's wonderful to see you, Rich. We are honored today to also have a number of our elected Soil and Water Conservation District members. I see Karen Harriet and Ed Young in the audience, and wonderful to see you both. Am I missing anyone?
Amy.
I'm
Amy
sorry,
Volpe.
I was just going to say, but today, Amy Vopel is here to present the winners of the Wild Seminole Photo Contest. And Commissioner Delory, would you like to introduce her?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the honor of introducing this individual. When she first took office, she knew that she wanted to bring something more to the Soil and Water Board than just trying to communicate the importance of what the board does, but she wanted to bring the community involved. So she came up with this idea of this photo contest, and I'm excited to see the winners here today. But I also want to give everyone a bit of advice. When she gives you a phone call that she wants you to join her on these outings, expect to meet her at 6 a.m. and make sure that someone has a first aid kit, because inadvertently, someone's always getting hurt.
There's a sales pitch
And
for
my
you.
dear friend, Amy Vote, I will tell you, your leadership, not just in this issue, but so many other issues when it comes to the Soil and Water Board, does not go unnoticed, so thank you.
Amy, you're recognized.
Thank you so much. And yes, it's usually me that's getting hurt. And the trail cam has actually caught me going down a couple of times in the mud, putting it in. So a year ago, we decided to do a Wild Seminole Photo Contest. It was created with a partnership with the Seminole Soil and Water Conservation District and the Seminole Board of County Commissioners. The rules were pretty simple. Photos had to be submitted by a Seminole County resident. Photos had to be taken in Seminole County, had to reflect the subject matter, which were scenery, nature, conservation in some way, wildlife, but no photos could be of baiting wildlife or harassing wildlife in any way. We had 45 photos were submitted for this contest. 3 judges, our Seminole County tax collector, J.R. Kroll, a art teacher from Sterling Park Elementary, Miss Sarah Sharp, and Wild Seminole Representative Becky O'Brien. So I'd like to present the winners. An honorable mention was, this was submitted by Michelle Gurbanian. It's a Sandhill crane baby,
Mr. Chairman, can we have someone put that on the big monitor, please?
taken
thanks,
in
Brandon.
Castleberry. Michelle, you want? Oh,
Can we zoom out a little bit, please?
this was taken in
Perfect.
Castleberry,
Okay.
a baby Sandhill crane. And it was taken by Michelle Gurbanian. And our next photo is an honorable mention taken by Jeffrey Gammon. It's a gopher tortoise taken in Winter Springs.
Wow.
Third place was taken again by Michelle Gurbanian. It's a golden silk spider taken in Black Bear Wilderness area.
Wow.
Our second place was taken by Jeffrey Gammon, a damselfly at Lake Howell. And it goes like that. And first place was taken by Tina Blatton, a cypress tree at Lake Jessup. All these photos are canvas wrapped. They were done at a place called Art Boulevard at Oviedo Mall, little local place. They did a really good job. And I'm thankful that you will be all hanging these in your county office in the building department.
Great.
Thank you, Amy. That's beautiful.
They will be seen a lot down there.
Yes.
Chairman?
Yes, please. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Zimbaugh.
I just wanted to applaud the efforts of our soil and water on this. When I got a call last year from Amy, and she said, Mr. Chairman, we have this thought we want to do this. What do you think? Trail cameras and so forth. And I said, well, you're talking to the right guy. I know a little bit about trail cameras. And I said, I think it's a fantastic idea. It's a fantastic way to not only showcase, the animals and wildlife and all the parks and trails throughout our county. I want to thank our Parks and Rec people who also participated, as I understand, helping get placement of those trail cameras in certain areas. We sincerely appreciate that. But this is another attribute of an idea that has come to fruition that many of our residents really appreciate this fine art when you are taking pictures of things out in Seminole County. It's not from another county, it's not from somewhere else, it's right here in our county. And as we heard, the areas that we're taken from gets right back to some of the benefits of living in Seminole County, which is the great outdoors, the green of our parks and recreation and trails, and so many activities that can take place out there. So thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
It was our pleasure. I mean, there's so much morale out there, like just about the development. And yeah, I can understand that being stuck in traffic sometimes for 20 minutes at a same red light. But at the same time, I'm an amateur photographer. That's my hobby. And there are times I remember taking some beautiful photos going down Redbug of a beautiful moon, and sometimes sitting in traffic and I think of that photo, it's not so bad anymore. And that's what the photos do. It kind of reminds you of all the efforts that Seminole County has put in to conservation. And it's just a great little reminder. So thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you.
Amy, I just want to ask, I'm hoping that we're going to continue this with not just you, but the Soil and Water Board, this photo contest, as well as the trail cameras.
It was such a success. I think it will continue.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Become a tradition. Thank you very much, all three of you. We appreciate all the hard work you do for Seminole County.
Yep.
I'm sorry?
Photo.
Oh, please, yes.
Which picture are you going to hold? Cypress Street? It's my district.
It is, gang. Leave that tree.
I love my cypress trees.
You want us all to hold a picture and we can get them all?
We have one of our... We have one of our, yeah. Please, step in.
You're the winner. Thank you. Sure, Andrea. Yeah. We'll get in the back.
All right, everyone ready? And 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1, we'll bring the clicks going.
I was getting extra, just in case.
Once again, thank you very much for all that you do. We really appreciate it, the Soil and Water Commission, and clearly those photos were just beautiful. Thank you very much. All right, the next item on the agenda is we're going to have Matthew Taylor with Atkins Global, and John Dredge, of our Public Works Director, will present English Estate sidewalks and an update.
Are you going to put that on stamp there?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Matthew Taylor. I'm with Atkins, and I'm presenting updates to the English Estates sidewalk improvements. This is the justification study. Which way is advanced? To the right? Yeah, to the right. Okay. And left is back. Okay. Let's see. Our agenda today will cover a brief recap of the project history and the intent, an update on the current project status, and finally the next steps as we move forward with the overall effort. I'd like to start with a brief summary of the project intent and history. This project reflects the county's commitments to adding and improving pedestrian facilities. The English Estates subdivision was identified as a potential project in 2014 with the 1 cent sales tax infrastructure. Recent project history: in January of 2020, we began data collection and the preliminary sidewalk design for the English Estates project. Last summer, we did a public involvement phase for the sidewalk design project, had a virtual public meeting, and had public input at that time. In August of 2020, we presented that finding to the board, and you requested additional analysis and a prioritization recommendations of sidewalk corridors. In September of 2020, we started that effort. We did initial analysis and evaluation and prioritized sidewalk corridors. And then in January of this year, we conducted another public involvement phase for the justification report and conducted a virtual public meeting. So a sidewalk justification study was conducted to further evaluate the feasibility in providing sidewalks throughout English Estates. Traffic data was collected, another field review was conducted, the information was analyzed, and criteria to evaluate proposed sidewalks was developed. Based on the findings, sidewalk recommendations were made. This map shows the overall project area, which is generally from Glastonbury on the west to Winston on the east, and from Derbyshire on the south to Carrollton Road on the north. This map depicts the general land uses of the area. Residential areas are typically considered trip generators, with commercial areas being trip attractors. Community facilities, including schools, parks, and bus stops, are also shown. Vehicular traffic data was collected in early November on numerous streets in the community. This map displays daily traffic counts. Volumes are generally low on most of the streets, with only 3 sites exhibiting more than 400 cars per day. That said, the data reveals that Glastonbury, Hunterfield, and Winston serve as collectors of traffic within the neighborhood. For comparison, recent traffic counts on Oxford and Derbyshire show 3,000 to 4,000 vehicles per day. Traffic speed data was also collected at the same locations. The information collected shows that most vehicles are traveling at normal residential area speeds. Between 2015 and 2020, there were 14 crashes reported in the area. The crash record narratives were reviewed to verify locations, severity, crash type, and manner of the collision. Most of the crashes resulted in property damage only. Of the 14 crashes, 8 involved collisions with parked vehicles. An updated field review was conducted in November of 2020. Streets were categorized based on whether they appeared to have little or no above-ground conflicts, clearable conflicts, or major conflicts. This map overlays the traffic volume data collected with the field review information. This final map depicts the sidewalk prioritization recommendations. Glastonbury, Hunterfield, and Winston have higher traffic volumes and do not appear to have major sidewalk conflicts. They also offer connectivity to the sidewalks on Oxford Road and Derbyshire, and also to the neighborhoods north of English Estates. So these were the recommended corridors for proposed sidewalks. This is our recent timeline. Again, in December 2020, we submitted a draft justification study to the county. In January, the project website was activated and public input and question period was opened. On January 28th, we held a virtual public meeting and solicited input from residents. On February 5th, the public input period was closed, and during the week of February 8th through 12th, we provided written responses to all public questions and inquiries. This shows a summary of all the public involvement that we did in the recent phase. 416 project newsletters were sent out to all the residents in the area. We hosted a project website, or the county hosted a project website for 2 weeks. We hosted a Zoom virtual public meeting on January 8th. We provided responses to individual emails during the week of February 8th through 12th. All public questions and answers will be included as in an appendix in the final justification study, which will be submitted this coming Friday. And a summary of the public meeting response is shown here below. We had 41 registered for the Zoom meeting, 32 written questions answered, 15 live questions answered during that Zoom call, and then 21 comments were separately emailed to the county PM and subsequently responded to. The graph on the right side of this page shows the total number of newsletters that were sent out to all the residents, 416. Of that, we had public response or input from about 30 of them. And then to the right of that, which is cut off a little bit by the boxes there, it shows the support or opposition or neutrality to the project based on whether the residents lived on the proposed corridors or off those proposed corridors. So the next steps, we're presenting the final justification study to you today, and then able to answer any questions that you have. As I mentioned, on Friday, we'll be submitting the final justification study to the county that includes all the public involvement, input, and responses. And then it's also noteworthy that the county is beginning an Oxford Road sidewalk and drainage improvements project that also may include Derbyshire Road as well. But that project may begin sometime in the spring. And in the fall, we anticipate having another public involvement phase for that project as well. And that's it.
I'm sure there's questions. Commissioner
There are
Lockhart.
questions. So this is my district, and I know many of you have also gone out and visited the neighborhood and talked with folks out there, and there is definitely differing opinions among the neighbors of what should and shouldn't be done. I'm curious, though, of the 21 comments that were submitted, I didn't see that we wound up with those. Does
They may
someone
not be
have
in your
them?
draft. They will be in the final report submitted on Friday.
Okay. The timing of this coming to us is interesting because we also received in our email this last week a report from the county attorney's office on current litigation, and about 50% of those cases are related to sidewalks. And I think we need to be really cautious that if we are going to be taking the attitude that going through and retrofitting sidewalks into these older neighborhoods and doing as many as we are, obviously maintenance is a huge piece of that. If we're going to be continuing to put in new infrastructure, we have to be willing to make the commitment to maintain it so that the county attorney's office has less work to do. I'm not saying that all of those cases are legitimate, by the way, Bryant. Okay.
Yeah, I would say, trust me, they're not.
Well, the fact that there are 20-some cases and 50% of them are related to sidewalks, I think is interesting. So I, for one, would like to take a very conservative approach in this neighborhood. And I appreciate all of the work that you all have done. The community has been very, very involved and engaged, and I know that that's great, but it also makes it a little bit more complicated for you all to do your work. It's much easier to just say, we're putting sidewalks everywhere. That's definitely the path of least resistance in many cases. But I think that this neighborhood in particular is going to require some very in-depth maneuvering of exactly where these should and should not go. So that's my introductory comment.
Others? Any comments? Commissioner Delory?
Thank you. I would agree with Commissioner Lockhart that it's a good thing this community is involved. I think that's always a good thing. But it gives us a little more of a challenge. And that's why we need to make sure that we have full transparency. But when we're talking about existing neighborhoods, I want to make sure that we're working with the residents and we're not taking down trees or uprooting trees literally just to put a sidewalk in, and if the sidewalk is not really needed, and or changing the existing neighborhood to a point that it's not the neighborhood that people live there for. And in some of the streets that I've actually walked in this area, there are some septic systems that I hope that the staff is looking into to make sure that we're not have any conflicts with those systems. And in your presentation, this does not include Oxford Road, correct, through this neighborhood?
No, that's going to be a separate project. It'll have its own separate public involvement. Yes.
Because the reason why I'm bringing that up is because intersection of East Boulevard and Oxford Road, in one of the days that I've walked it, could potentially, and I say potentially, be a conflict of sight distance issue. So I'm glad that that's going to be looked at Oxford Road.
Yes, we will.
And I want to make sure that the school system in that area is also involved, because all the kids going back and forth to school, we want to make sure that we're addressing any of those issues as well. And I look forward to seeing what we're doing with Oxford Road as well as your final report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further? All right, thank you very much.
I'm sorry, were you asking for any type of input or direction from us at this point?
No, not at this point. We were just presenting our findings to you.
And I was going to ask Mr. Dredge to come up and make a comment, and maybe you might have questions then. Mr. Dredge, do you have anything further?
Yeah, for the record, John Dredge, Public Works Director. We would like to see some, staff would like to see some direction from the board, what you want us to go to the second step. The consultant will be finalizing the report. All those comments are addressed for the community, and the consultant proposed to do sidewalk on those three streets. Like to see what the wishes of the board to move forward, or other input would be helpful.
Okay. Commissioner Zimbauer?
For our county engineer, there was a comment made by Commissioner DeLauria. I just want to make sure the sidewalks that are being considered, they are going in right away?
Yes.
They're not, do we have septic tanks that are in the right of way?
During the final design and construction, if there's anything within the right-of-way, septic tank or others, that will be verified before we start the construction. We did not have, there are some sidewalk in some of the area. We did not have any issue previously about septic tank in the right-of-way. But all those utility, whether septic tank or any other utility, will be verified during the final design and prior to construction.
Sure. I mean, I would be deeply troubled if there were septic tanks in that close proximity to drainage easements and roadway easements. That would be very concerning to me. Secondary to that, we have an inventory of what kind of trees would be impacted with this proposal?
Yes, that he can comment what tree is the type of tree. The consultant can tell you what type of trees will be impacted. I'm not aware of any major tree will be impacted, but he can comment a bit more. And also in the report, he's shown the side, what side of the street that the sidewalk will be.
Right, and I know, going back, if my memory serves me properly, there was discussion amongst this board, or I guess it would be the last board before Commissioner Herr was here, but we had asked about the capability of sidewalks going around trees or moving or meandering somewhat. So for me, that would be important to understand. Right. Exactly what meandering we're doing to save what caliber trees, the age of those trees, et cetera, et cetera. Many trees out in this area, we'd be hard pressed to replace.
Right.
In our lifetime.
We understand that, and we will be taking those precautions if the board requested for us to move forward. In some area, we may have to put a curb and bring the sidewalk to the curb so to avoid taking any trees down. Some of them we may have to go around to the back of the trees. That will be taken consideration during the design.
Sure, understood. And I don't know about my fellow commissioners, but for me to be able to understand and consider direction, I would have to have significant amount of information of what that impact would be and what those sidewalks would meander around in what areas. I know it's easy for us to say, yeah, we're going to try to do this, and we're going to do this, that, and whatever, but I don't think we really know yet.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner Delory and then Commissioner Lockhart.
I'm sorry. Could we get at the final design, at the final submittal of this report, since they are recommending a couple of major roads for sidewalks, can we get like a one-line sketch of what the issues could potentially be, so we can actually look at it, so we can give you,
Yeah, we can have a concept layout for sure.
I think that may help us.
Okay.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Well, so under next steps from your presentation, you said Board of County Commissioners to decide whether project, original or modified, continues or is terminated, and that's today's date that you were asking for that to happen. So it doesn't sound like you have the majority of the board who can do that right now, but I will tell you as the district commissioner, I would like to see this project modified going forward. What exactly that looks like, in one person's opinion at this point. So if there's an opportunity for anyone to take some field trips out there, that might be helpful. I think seeing it in real life is very different than seeing it on a map, although the maps are super helpful. I'm not going to say I don't want the maps. And again, I know engineers like straight lines. That's easy. But when we're going through and retrofitting and trying to impose, in some cases, we're imposing these sidewalks on these neighbors, we really owe it to them and to us to make sure that we are doing it as unobtrusively as possible. And again, I will say as little as possible. As much as this is supposed to be about safety, we all know tree roots upend sidewalks, and kids on bikes on sidewalks don't get along real well when they don't match up. And I've spent some time with some of our public works teams over the years, and I know how much time they spend maintaining and repairing sidewalks. We just have to be very, very cautious. If we're going to continue to just be putting these in anywhere and everywhere, I'm not sure that the budget to maintain them is also being increased. Maybe that's a whole nother conversation, but there's a lot of sidewalk stuff going on here in the future.
That's true, and we do budget quite a bit for maintenance of a sidewalk, and maintenance of sidewalk, especially in an area where you have a lot of trees, can be a challenge, and ongoing maintenance is less so.
Commissioner Simbauer?
As far as direction, if they're asking for direction today, personally, I'm going to defer to Commissioner Lockhart. It is her district. I have no problem moving forward, but I'm not comfortable making a decision until I get some kind of conceptual plan, an ideology of what the impacts are going to be and what we're going to do. I mean, the sidewalk issue continually is, regardless of what neighborhood it's in, you have people that moved there that didn't have sidewalks, don't want sidewalks. Now you have new families with young children, they want sidewalks. Then you have, the infrastructure promise of the 1 cent sales tax, that certain things were going to be done. So it really is something that we've got to wrestle and grasp at the end of the day what we ultimately do. Because although it's important for those people that are there now, I think we as a board owe it to this county long-term, 20, 30, 40 years down the road, and considering what may or may not happen then. We've seen this, by example, in the city of Orlando, when sidewalks were built around the large historic oaks in downtown. 2 years later, hurricane came through, ripped the trees out. So, you always have that possibility, and changes the landscape indefinitely. So I'm okay moving forward, but I'd like to see a conceptual plan before I ultimately say this is okay.
Okay, so Mr. Dredge, what you've heard is, we want to see a conceptual plan. We want to see more Commissioner Delory said he just doesn't want to see straight lines. He wants to see, a plan. I think as part of this, you all had indicated that you were still going to do some outreach. Is that correct?
We already did a community meeting before.
Okay,
Okay,
so,
we will outreach based on the board direction. What's the next step you want us to do?
yeah, I thought I heard Mr. Taylor say that there was still more outreach, but that's a, Commissioner Lockhart has indicated that she wanted to see a modified. I saw that you had put priorities on the major streets. Is that the way we want to go right now? Because that's not going the full-blown, but that's just going on the major streets. Is that something that you want to have them put together a plan?
I'm okay with the major streets with the high traffic volume, I think, and connectability through that area where people are really going to be walking, as compared to those collector. If we look at the traffic counts, they're pretty low numbers on some of the interior streets, but on those Derbyshire and so forth, you have much higher counts that I think we should be connecting.
Commissioner Lockhart?
If the board would allow me, I'd like to read an email into the record that was sent by a neighbor who's been very active out there, because I think she has a perspective. There are others who have perspectives, but I think this is important. Is that all right with you?
Go right ahead.
So she says, particularly she's writing regarding West Hunterfield Road and the method employed in the Atkins survey in this instance, which she believes to be faulty. The survey of this particular street was done by placing a single traffic counter at the entrance of West Hunterfield Road from Oxford Road. This provided no information as to the direction taken after the turn onto Hunterfield. In my letter of January 27th, 2021, I pointed out that the survey made no note of the number of vehicles that turn right or left onto Hunterfield from Oxford, then left on Stratford, and continue on from that point to various other destinations. West Hunterfield Road is the only entry point from Oxford Road to each of the various houses located within the area. It's also a way to avoid the three-way stop at the end of Oxford and Derbyshire. Below are the listed number of houses on the adjacent streets, including Glastonbury, and you're looking at single-digit numbers on half the streets that have 6, 7, and 8 homes, and then 15, 19, and 24 homes. We're not talking about these sidewalks serving a great number of people. That this is not her speaking now, this is me. I'm editorializing.
Really?
But I think it's important that that be on the record, because while, you know, I'm certainly not taking a shot at Atkins for their methodology, I think it's important to know that from the community's perspective, the methodology is in question. And so I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page about what moving forward with the major streets might mean, if that's what we're thinking we might want to do. I'm not convinced that the plan that we have before us is the best for this neighborhood. I would even consider taking some of the, 1 or 2 of the major streets off. I think there are other things with traffic patterns cut through in this neighborhood that we need to look at and address. The neighbors have asked for stop signs. I've visited out there with Mr. Abel in the past. There's just, it is a multifaceted onion of peeling back the layers of needs in this community relating to traffic, and I don't think that this just blanketing these sidewalks is the fix. So I don't know.
I'd like to hear from Mr.
Yeah, certainly. Feel free to respond.
Respond to that. I mean, I clearly understand what the layperson sees in the landscape. I'm not sure everybody understands how markers are placed to collect and hit all the traffic counts as they navigate in and out of certain areas.
Relative to the traffic counts collected on Hunterfield Road, so I understand her perspective. We place traffic tubes, collectors, at strategic points around the neighborhood. We wanted to see what the highest traffic counts were. We knew that where we placed the counter on Hunterfield was going to pick up the traffic from Stratford and all those collector roads, because we know they cut through to get to Oxford. We wanted to collect the highest number of traffic. We know that that traffic doesn't represent that entire stretch of Hunterfield Road, but we did want to know what the maximum values was.
Right. And I think that's important for us to recognize in those numbers, and thank you for clarifying that, because I think when we see those big numbers, it makes us think, wow, all those cars are driving down all that way, down that road, and that's not the case.
Correct.
So, thank you.
No, absolutely. And I would say that the traffic issues that Commissioner Lockhart raises, I would be interested in knowing has engineering, traffic engineering been out there? What studies, what counts, what has been done to either support or not support some change in stop signs or so forth from that perspective? And I think that's a different conversation, but I think what I'm hearing from the district commissioner is there's other issues out there not related to sidewalks that the community is concerned about. So I would like to know if the sidewalks are plugging into the traffic issue, mitigating that. I'm not sure I follow that rationale, but have we done engineering out there, John? Have we done engineering studies for traffic out there? Do we need calming devices or?
There are already some common devices
Right.
in the street. For a stop sign, when somebody call and request a stop sign, we send it to traffic operations. They have to do study, and that has to warrant it. We don't go and put a stop sign because it is a stop sign request. It has to be
No, I
warranted.
understand that.
And we have done that. Anytime somebody requested it, it's traffic operations that go and they evaluate it. If it's warranted, they do. If it's not, they respond back to the citizens, say it is not warranted.
But has there been studies in this area of English estates referenced what Commissioner Lockhart raised with those issues? I just want to know if there's been any traffic engineering studies related to Commissioner Lockhart's concern.
The only engineering study it is we do on local road. If somebody requested issue, we do not do traffic count on what I call it local. We do it on what I call it collector road and so on. If there were some complaint or some issue, we'll go and do the study. I know in that area probably some stop sign, if it's requested, we'll go and do the study.
John, do you know if we've done any studies out there?
I'm not, offhand, I don't know, but I can
Okay.
check to see the type of study and the type of request is been.
See, in my district, I have the opposite problem. They want us to take a study to get rid of the stop signs.
Commissioner Delory?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And John, I think doing the preliminary design or concept design is the appropriate way. And in addition, looking at the trees and the roots, also look at the light poles, because on Hunterfield, there's also a series, because I've walked that neighborhood, of light poles that are right up against the street, and I don't want to see the light poles in the middle of a sidewalk, because I've seen that in other parts of the county, and we should not be putting light poles in the middle of the sidewalk. So that's going to have to get moved, because I know on Hunterfield there's at least 3 light poles, from what I remember, that are right up against the road.
Right.
So make sure that we identify those as well as a cost. Because we're going to have to put those somewhere.
We should not, we do not, and we should not put in the sidewalk street light. And that will be, if they need to be, go around it or need to be removed, that we can be addressed.
Okay, I'll have Kendra give you a call.
Okay, there's been a number of comments here. Commissioner Lockhart, do you have anything else that you, since it's your district, that you want them to look at before they bring it back?
I would like them to reconsider the length of Hunterfield Road. I think, and I think the other streets that you called local streets that would be a part of this plan, I do not see the need for there to be sidewalks on these streets that have 6, 7, and 8 homes. These folks the idea is to give them a safe way to get out of the neighborhood and to the elementary school or to wherever the other places are that they're interested in walking or riding their bikes. Although bikes aren't supposed to be on sidewalks, are they? Bikes are
Well, I
supposed to be
mean,
on the road.
the kids do. I
The
mean,
kids do, that's true.
So-
Anyway, Hunterfield, I'd like you to reconsider, certainly. I'd like to do the minimum required to give people the pathway that they need to get to the elementary school. I just am not a fan of blanketing this neighborhood with sidewalks. And until there is consensus or additional input from the rest of the board, I'm not going to tell you that that's what you should do. This is my opinion, one commissioner.
And that the proposal is a 3 street. So you're saying move one we consider it 2?
Correct.
Okay.
I think all of us.
With all of the other caveats of the
I
conversations
understand.
we've had.
I think all of us understand that we should always take the consideration of the neighborhood and what they would like as individuals. But we also have a safety concern. So we have to take both of those considerations. It's not just a up or down vote by the citizens necessarily, because different citizens have different needs, as has been pointed out. You know, younger residents would have a different opinion in many cases than some of the older residents. But in this specific area, which is such a mature area and has so many different aspects to it, safety certainly, but I think that we need to concern ourselves with the trees, the septic tanks, the concerns of the citizens.
Light poles?
Light poles. So, County Manager and Public Works Director, we're not trying to avoid the issue. We're trying to say we need all of these things to look at and then bring back a recommendation that we can actually sink our teeth into.
When it looks like if we're reading the data right, based on the information packets that went out to the community, it looks like less than 10% of the people attended a Zoom meeting, less than about 7% had any kind of comments, and those comments should be looked at and weighed upon and looked at very closely as to what they really indicate.
And we all understand that the people that normally come out to these meetings are the people that are against
Well,
the
not
project.
necessarily. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, if you remember the last time this was before us, Commissioner Lockhart, I'm sure will remember that we had people, all kinds of people that wanted them and all kinds of people that didn't want them.
It was Comus worthy.
Yeah, in this, this neighborhood is, in that sense, is unique.
Right.
But I'm just saying, you're absolutely right. Of 400 plus, there were 30.
Right.
Of the 30, there were more that were against than 4.
Right.
It's almost like you want to do an MSBU poll out there of where they're coming from. But again, our Public Works Director, our County Manager cannot make a decision based on just, an up or down from.
Understood.
It's got to be also based in methodology and safety. And Commissioner Lockhart, you had the last word.
I don't know. How close are we to getting the 21 comments so that we can actually read those? I know you said it's going to be a part of the final report, but could we get a peek at those?
Yes, they're ready now.
Could you send them to us?
Yes.
That'd be awesome.
So we'll get something in the email while we're up on this dais today.
Yes.
That'd
Okay,
be
there you
very
go.
helpful. Thank you.
Great.
All right, further comments? Yes, Mr.
Yeah, one comment. So you want us to reconsider Huntersville out and concentrate on the 2 street and provide more concept and more detail on the other 2 streets?
That is one commissioner's request.
I'd like to see the whole project, but I
Yes.
want a concept
For the 3
of
streets?
I want to know the impacts and a conceptual of what that may look like. That's my.
And I guess
2 cents.
considering all this, I would like to see a recommendation, including what the citizens want, but, taking that into consideration, but taking safety and all the methodology in consideration, what the staff would recommend.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I think you've all covered it.
Yep.
Let's move on.
Thank you very much.
Well
I
said,
think we've
Commissioner.
covered it.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
County Manager, did we miss anything that you want us to make sure that we cover in that?
I think we're good. I think we have
Okay,
good direction.
staff is
Thank you.
good.
Thank
All right,
you.
that's all I wanted to know. I wanted to make sure the staff had the direction that they needed. Okay, moving on. I'm going to go into public participation again. Please, sorry that I have to continue to read these things, but it is pursuant to Florida law.
Say
The public-
BCC this time, please, instead of BBC.
Did I say, what did I say?
You said BBC again.
BBC again. I was going to hold up a big thing that said BCC over here.
You know,
I'm just giving you a
you
rough
guys
time.
are
but-
so petty, so petty.
Just let me know. Give me the word and I'll knock them out of it.
Thank you. Dear Lord.
I got you.
Just give
Okay.
it good. Let's go.
Pursuant to Florida law, the public has the right to be heard on all propositions, except when the Board of County Commissioners is acting on ministerial or emergency matters or conducting a meeting exempt from the Section 286.011 Florida statutes. Public comment time on propositions shall be 3 minutes for individuals and 6 minutes for group presentations, give or take. The right to be heard during quasi-judicial hearings is governed by Florida law. The public will be provided the opportunity to be heard on non-agenda matters at the end of the meeting. Proper decorum will be observed. If members of the public would like to make a comment and are attending the meeting in person, you will be called on first. If using a computer, iPad, or other electronic devices, click on the raise hand feature and you will be called on next. Lastly, if you have called in on telephone, you can raise your hand by pressing star 9. You'll be called on in the order that you have raised your hand. You know, we should almost do it opposite and let the people that aren't here go first and then the people going last. Maybe we'll do that next. County Manager, do you have any changes in the consent agenda?
Chairman, I have 2 add-on consent agenda items, item number 46 and 47, but I'm going to ask you to consider those this afternoon with one of the public hearing items. So
Nope.
no
And
changes this morning.
Without objection, that's what we will do. Okay. So with that, do we have anyone from the public that would like to comment on any consent item 7 through 38? Anyone? 7 through 38. Clint, do we have anybody that wishes to comment on 7 through 38?
No, sir.
Okay. So commissioners, do we have anybody that wishes to withdraw any item or consider it separately? 7 through 38.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve items 7 through 38 as presented here today.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We are now on 39.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve item number 39 as submitted.
Second.
Motion and seconded on 39. Yes, learn fast. Don't have to get up if they make the motion. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve item number 40 as presented to us on the agenda.
Second.
Item number 40, second. Discussion. Oh, wait a minute. My bad. Hold on for 1 second, please. On 39, we should have had, anyone that in the public wishes to discuss 39. So I'm going to move back, if we can. Anybody in the public wishes to talk about 39, which is the necessity for Oxford Road Improvements Project. Anyone? Anyone? Okay, then the motion will stand without objection. Okay, now on 40, do we have anyone that wishes to comment on 40 before we vote on it? 40 is the expenditure approvals for the county clerk. Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we have a motion. Did we have a second?
Did.
Motion and second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. Next, we have the County Investment Advisory Report, and Tim is coming up. Tim Jex is coming up, and we also have Scott McIntyre, I believe, on the phone. Scott?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
Very proud of the commission for moving so fast on those, but thank you very much for letting me make sure that we had everybody in the audience taken care of.
That was good.
Okay, Tim, you there?
Yes, we can hear you, Scott.
Okay, and Tim, if we could go to the first page. Hope you guys are doing okay.
We hope you're doing
Try to go
okay in
through this
Texas. I hear
reasonably
it's 70 degrees today, but so you warming up a little bit, Scott?
Yeah, it was 75 yesterday. I was actually out in the yard and got a sunburn. So that's a far cry from 6 degrees a few days earlier, but I guess that's Texas weather. I'm glad to have the heat back. The event's driving the market. We actually have some good news, and you guys are probably feeling it. But
Scott, we're having a little problem with the audio. I don't know whether it's you're not speaking directly into the mic or...
Okay, is that better?
Yes. That's better.
Okay. Okay, I've got a headset on. I can pick up the phone if I need to, but I think I had it a little bit down. The good news, and it certainly is good news, and we keep hearing continued good news about this. The virus spread is slowing very, very quickly. New cases down 75%. Hospitalizations are down 40% over just the last month. And, we're now up to 1.7 as of yesterday million shots administered daily. So, a lot of folks who thought that we may reach herd immunity, for lack of a better word, by, late summer are now thinking it could be significantly earlier. Some news that I read just the other day indicated that 110 million Americans could receive at least one dose by the end of March. That is probably very, very optimistic, but nevertheless, it is moving forward quickly. And for whatever reason, I think it may have to do as much as anything else with us moving into spring, but the spread is slowing, and that is obviously very good for the economy. There is, and this is very important, I mentioned it before, but there is a massive amount of cash on the sidelines. Consumers added $1.5 trillion to their savings over just the last 8 months. We see that as kind of a coiled spring for when things do open up in terms of consumer spending really being launched. On top of that, it looks to me like the Biden stimulus plan, for better for worse, $1.9 trillion will be passed. That will not be until mid-March. We're probably 2 to 3 weeks away from that actually going through, but that will add even more spending capacity. On top of everything else, most people felt like first quarter economic growth was going to be sluggish. There were a number of economists who felt like it might actually be negative in the first quarter. And then lo and behold, we got the first retail sales report, and it was unexpectedly strong. In fact, all 13 categories of retail sales were positive. That was actually the 5th time in the last 22 years that had happened. So it wasn't just a one-off. I mean, spending has been pretty robust there. So a lot of people now feel like first quarter GDP could be considerably stronger than people expected. And that was going to be the weak quarter. The expectation was by the tail end of the second and third quarter, we would start to see some strength. But it happened earlier. At least it appears to have happened earlier. There's a lot of noise in the numbers, but we're going to see that as a positive. Short maturity yields, which of course Seminole County buys short yields. They're anchored by Fed policy. They're still near zero, which is unfortunate. Longer yields are slowly rising. The reason that's happening is because there's an expectation for a sharp recovery, as I just said, later this year. So, the longer yields are getting themselves in position. I will say that we are actually under the belief that short yields are compressed right now more than they should be, and we feel like as we move into the summer months, we're going to see some slope on the curve on the short end as well. So, hoping that happens. Going to the next slide. Employment. The reason the Fed has anchored rates as low as they had and indicated that they're not going to be moving anytime soon is that their primary focus right now seems to be on getting the unemployment rate back to 4%. Or below 4%. And right now, as that little graph indicates, the jobs that were lost, about 10 million of those have not returned. And those are primarily service sector jobs related to, as you might have guessed, bars, restaurants, hotels, sporting events, conferences, all the things that are missing and will be. Now, we understand and recognize that all of those could start to come back later this year. The Fed has said they're going to wait before raising rates until they've actually seen the jobs come back, but we're under the impression they're going to come back sooner rather than later. Right now, job growth has slowed. There was 227,000 jobs that disappeared from non-farm payrolls in December. That was revised actually lower in January. In January, only 49,000 jobs were added. Both of those are just terrible numbers, but we get that. We get the fact that people were hunkered down during the winter months, that those service sector jobs certainly were not going to appear in January, and we believe that things will eventually come back. The unemployment rate did actually fall from 6.7 to 6.3. That's sort of a head fake, because it's not that people found jobs in January. It's that 400,000 Americans abandoned their job search and disappear from the labor force. And they will come back as well. The unofficial unemployment rate, if you move the labor force participation rate back to where it was a year ago, we're looking at roughly 10% unemployment and not 6.3. But this will change, later this year. We sort of known we had to get through a few months of tough going, and that's the case. The next slide is retail sales. This is basically consumer spending. This is what drives the economy. This is a very interesting graph to look at. The blue bar is month to month. So you can see that last year in March and April, people stopped spending. And then once the economy started to open back up again, they started spending like gangbusters in May and in June. Then after that, it tapered off. We had 3 months worth of negative retail sales. And then lo and behold, January, as I mentioned, was a big, big surprise, up 5.3% in January month over month. There is some seasonal adjustments that make that a noisy number. But like I said, that spending was across the board in January. And we feel like we're going to see really big bounces in the summer. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I do feel like I would like to go out, go to restaurants, go to bars. I'd love to come back to conferences. And I think that I'm not alone in any stretch. So, once the spending comes back, and again, you look at things like, I talked about a coiled spring before. I talked about how the savings rate has spiked, and there's $1.5 trillion worth of savings increase. There's a lot of cash on the sidelines waiting to be spent, and we believe that it will be spent later on. That'll boost economic growth in the second, third, and fourth quarters of this year. We will see some signs of inflation, and even though the Fed is determined that they're not going to move, I think the market's going to get ahead of the Fed, and we're going to see some movement upward in rates, which is a good thing, because moving to the next slide, the available investment options. First thing I want to mention is that top corner. The January portfolio yield was 0.58. A year ago, that would have sounded pretty bad. But compared to some of the other investment options, the portfolio yield is, isn't terrible. We certainly would have expected that it would have stayed, above 1%, because the Fed now has cut to zero almost a year ago. But some of the investment options that we looked at are listed here. 6-month Treasury notes are now at 4 basis points. If you were to buy a 1-year Treasury note, it would pay you 7 basis points. It's kind of one of the reasons that we tried to get ahead of that a couple months ago and held our nose and bought some Treasuries at 10 basis points, because we figured that they would fall, and they have. Agencies, we don't really get a whole lot of benefit there. Fannies, Freddies, home loans don't really pay you any more than full faith and credit treasuries. So not a whole lot of opportunity there. Callable agencies, as you go down, I mean, we would never buy a callable that only paid us, an additional 3 basis points over and above a 2-year, which is what they're doing. So, any possibility of buying callables, I think, is out the door. You're looking over at the Florida Qualified Public Depository savings rates. Obviously, they're much better than some of the other options that we have available. Unfortunately, the banks are not willing, in most cases, to take additional deposits. They're more than happy to hold on to the deposits that the county has with them, but they're saying, no more for now. I do think that those bank rates and the bank loan demand is going to kick up by the time we roll into the summer. So hopefully the banks are going to increase their rates instead of decreasing them, which they've been lately, and also open up the door and say we're willing to take some more deposits from you later. They're not doing that now, but those rates are still relatively solid compared to what we're seeing in other options, including treasuries agencies and callable agencies. Looking at some of the pool rates, these have fallen because the pools have to buy the same thing that we're looking at, and there's no secret to what the pools are doing. Florida Prime, the reason they're higher than the other pool rates is not because they're buying anything different. In fact, I would say they're probably more conservative than some of the other pools. But Florida Prime has a much lower fee structure. They charge about 3 basis points for the pool. Some of the other pools charge anywhere from 7 to 12 basis points. So they're buying the same things, but the fee that they carve off the top is lower with Florida Prime. We also like Florida Prime because Federated manages that fund, and frankly, when you get to the point where things are a little bit uncertain, we look to the underlying manager, and we feel very, very secure with Florida Prime. And I will tell you, when we look at where the monies are, that is the largest single allocation right now is to the AAA Federated managed Florida Prime account. We also look at Palm term rates. Palm is another provider of pools as well as fixed term rates. We had jumped in and bought a couple of fixed Palm term rates a couple months ago, and I believe the rate on those was closer to 17 basis points. And again, I'm glad we bought when we did, even though they stunk when we bought them. They stink even worse now. Not the fault of the term providers there, not the fault of the pool people, but that they have to manage in the same environment we are. So we're not going to be buying any more Palm term rates. We've already done that at higher levels. We're just sort of going to wait this out. Going to notes and recommendations, I want to mention there is the next upcoming maturity is in, 2 to 3 weeks. That is a CD with City National Bank that was put on at a 55. At the time, it looked like a pretty rotten rate, believe it or not, at the time, but we're going to be sad to see that go. The next maturity is until April. After that, it's on tax day. It's another $15 million of a Treasury note. We will be sad to see this 164 leave. In terms of purchases that we made since our last meeting, we bought $15 million of a Treasury bill to June 29th at a 6. As I mentioned before, we were buying, closer to 10 the last time, but, these opportunities are sort of fading. I feel like, as long as we're buying at positive yields, I'm happy with that. The purchase last time, or the purchase that was made, the $15 million Treasury bill purchase, was not made so much for yield. It was really made for safety, and it was made for diversification reasons. Other transactions that have happened, there was some money in the Axiom Money Market Fund. We transferred the $5 million out of there and into City National, basically just 5 in and 5 out. And that, as much as anything else, was because there's a lot of money in Axiom, and Axiom didn't want that deposit. They didn't want any more. So we moved it to a higher yielding and basically with a little bit stronger financial institution as well. Recommended purchases, I told you that there was a City National Bank CD that is maturing in March. What we'd like to do there is roll that over for 1 year at a 20. I know that doesn't sound very good, but when you compare that to the other options, it's not bad. Didn't want to go out any further than 12 months because we do feel like there was be some, upward slope that we will talk about later on. But for the most part, what we would recommend is moving that maturity out 12 months at a 20. Of course, that beats the pool yields. It beats what we've done in the past, and it's a rollover. City National has said that they would also accept an additional $5 million. So, we'll be asking to add another $5 million to that CD and going out again 12 months at 20. So that's all we're really asking for at this point in time is the rollover of the CD that's maturing on March 12th, and also because City National said they could accept a little bit more, rolling over, an additional $5 million into that CD and making it a total of 15. And then finally, monthly expenses will be paid from Florida Prime, which has the largest of the balances, and we sort of have moved money in and out of Florida Prime because basically you can do that on a single day notice. It's a fully liquid pool. Before we come back and ask for approval, I do want to go to the portfolio snapshot. And this is basically as of the January 31st portfolio. You can look down and see what the weighted average maturity was. It was 142 days. There's a lot of liquidity in this portfolio. We haven't had an opportunity to go out much further than that, and we do believe there's going to be a turnaround later this year to some degree. And, 63% is maturing within 90 days, and beyond 12 months, there's only about 16%. Again, the total yield on this portfolio is 58. The moves that we're going to make coming from Florida Prime and into Treasuries in February, which has actually already been done, since we're later in February, took that yield down to 56. And, basically there's a little bit of movement there. So looking at the benchmark comparison through the end of January, you guys are, Seminole County is the bright red line, and, that's a pretty stable and will continue to be stable yield as we roll into February. Again, you're only going to go from about 58 down to 56. The other benchmarks we compare ourselves again are dropping sharply. They reflect the investment options that I had shown you. So, this is nothing we're really going to be crowing about, but, frankly, the county has done fine with its investments, given the fact that it is a conservative portfolio. So as we move back up and, Tim, if we can move back up into the notes and recommendations, what I'm asking you guys for, again, is basically to roll a CD maturity and add $5 million to that, making it a $15 million CD going out 12 months at 20 basis points.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner.
Motion to adopt the recommendations of our financial advisor based on the report submitted here today and to direct the clerk to implement said board adopted recommendations.
Second.
Motion is second. Do we have any discussion from the public on this? Mr. Malloy, do you have anything that you would like to add? Any discussion from the commission? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Scott, it's good to know that you're keeping warm now, that it's going to be 75 degrees today. Good luck.
Thanks, guys. I do plan on being at the next meeting. I've made reservations for that. So if there's any reason that you believe that meeting will not be live, let me know. And I hope to see you next month.
Be well.
Okay, thank you very much. Now he wants to come to Florida.
You might be getting one of those $15,000 power bills this month.
Thank you all.
Yeah, I heard about that. Well, at least he's not going to Cancun, right? No, sorry. So, with that, County Attorney, do we have any briefing?
Just to point out, apologize for that. Point out that I distributed 9 other memos to add to the county attorney memo book. I distributed those over the past week or so to both all of your offices and to the county manager's office. We are currently working on a proposed amendment, suggested amendment to the agritourism bill and overall issue. My office will be meeting with Tricia and Nicole to talk about some other options that we're looking at before presenting that to you. A question came up recently about whether or not you could hold conservation land in perpetuity. It is our opinion that you can do that. At the request of a commissioner, Paul Chipok and I met with a couple constituents who have been asking about that issue, had a very good meeting. We will send out a memo to each of you describing the options, some of the options that you would have to achieve that goal. And again, we'll work with the county manager's office before distributing that to you. I want to thank Lynn Porter Carlton for the report on pending litigation. As I think it was already noted, you'll find it to be of some interest. We will update that regularly in the book as things change. On the Rivercross case, again, without discussion, there is a hearing set in state court on our motion to stay that action until the federal court makes its final rulings. Other than that, I think I covered everything that you all wanted at this point. I will schedule briefings with each of you if you have any questions on the memos. So I'll schedule briefings over the next week or so. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions to the county attorney?
No question. I just want to thank your staff for looking into the agritourism issue. We've had numerous constituents, I know in my district and some of the other districts, that have inquired, and I think this is a good time and place to do this when our legislature is having that discussion. So thank you very much.
We're going to, again, work with the county manager's office on hopefully coming up with something that we can submit that will get serious consideration.
Great,
Commissioner, we're getting a little bit into the legislative report that I know that Ms. Johnson's going to give us later. However, I did want to say that yesterday, the Florida Association of Counties, myself, the current president from Palm Beach, and the Cragen of the staff met with the Orlando Sentinel editorial board, and they were going throughout the state, meeting virally with all of the editorial boards concerning home rule and others. And this, again, is one of the bills that is home rule indicated. And I did want, as you probably know already, so I'm not telling you, but I'm just stating that this is a priority of the Senate President. So this is going to be very difficult to amend, although, because it's really an amendment of a bill. It's not, there's a few things, and yes.
Well, I will not be here this afternoon. Paul Chipok will cover the meeting, but I have to say that the state of that bill, and this is only my opinion, basically, if you have ag land, you can have any business you want, and this bill is going to protect it. So as far as I'm concerned, example, I'm not going to go down the list of examples, but
It's an additional, there's an additional paragraph starting in page starting in line 150, I believe is where it is, that essentially says you could have a Woodstock on your property.
That's right.
And you couldn't even tell them how many bathrooms to have or where the parking is.
you can have an adult entertainment on your property, and that would be
That's right.
considered agricultural use.
Given anybody any ideas?
My district will be having the cowgirl strippers.
We should stop talking now.
Yes, we should stop talking.
Like I tell
Yeah, we don't
my
want to give
kids.
anybody any ideas.
Don't bring it up, they won't think of it.
All right. Let's just say that the bill is problematic. The changes to the bill is problematic.
Mr. Chairman, can we discuss it at the appropriate time?
Yes.
This ain't it.
With that, is there anything else for the good of the order before we?
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I don't know what Shane's trying to tell me, but she didn't put a county manager briefing on here, so I'm going to.
You're right.
I'm going to tag on to Brian's.
We thought we already taken care of you with COVID.
I'm going to tag on to Bryant's briefing. And this was something I was going to bring up this afternoon, but since Bryant's not going to be here, I do want to discuss it with you while he's here. Terry has briefed all of you, I think, on this, the DEP and Water Management District rulemaking with respect to the Central Florida Water Initiative. That is moving forward, as he has shared with you. There are some things in the proposed rule that are of concern to us. There's a limitation on withdrawals to the 2025 allocation. There is a conservation provision, benchmark that even by the Water Management District's own admission, many jurisdictions will not be able to accomplish. And then there's also a concern that we have that we are not getting credit for the significant investments that we've made in our system to lower usage. So there are a number of problematic things in the rule. We did meet with the Water Management District last week, talk a little bit about our concerns. I don't know what will ultimately result from those discussions, but it was at least good to get our issues on the table. The deadline to file a challenge to the rule is March 1. We intend to move forward with that unless this board objects to it. We think it's the only way to protect our interests right now. We are hopeful that we'll be able to settle, or there'll be some other type of resolution that protects our ratepayers, but
Need a motion?
it would be great if you would give me a motion.
I mean, I think we've already made that decision.
Well, you've all indicated your
County
support
attorney brought it to us
independently.
at the last meeting.
And I think we, in that meeting, there was, I believe, some movement and some
Mr. Chairman,
agreements.
Mr. Chairman, just to make sure that there's no doubt in what our intentions were at the last meeting, I'd like to make a motion to give staff the ability to move forward. Any objections and/or appropriate complaints and/or lawsuits needed, filings.
And can I just add, and that the staff continues to
That's
work
correct.
with the St. John's to find agreement.
Second.
Okay. All right. I have someone have a hand raised. Is it about this issue, Clint?
I'm not sure, Chairman.
For the safety, just the sake of being cautious, I'm going to let them in.
Sure.
So, Clint, why don't you go ahead and let them in? It's a David, I don't know his last name, but his hand is raised. David, please state your name and address for the record.
David Serdar, 66 Wintergreen Drive, Fruitland Park, Florida, 34731. Do you hear me?
Yes, sir, but you might want to talk right into the mic.
All right. I'm hard of hearing. I'm 65 years old, but legislation I think you were talking about, and water authority. Well, I just came back from the state capitol. Session starts next week. I just got awarded again the Orange County Mayor Jerry's pin. I know senators and representatives. Escamani has a twin sister, and I am being honored with face masks from the Senate chief of staff. I'm making a difference. I'm trying to get laws for our kids' future. I got a bottom though. I've been in a joint administrative procedures meeting where Ken Plant and 5 senators and 5 representatives were told in executive order that any bill that's been sunsetted has to be looked at within 5 months. I was awarded for criminal justice. I don't drink. And criminal justice and the director of the jails, I have a friend of mine that was a warden, 26 years. Her uncle was a governor. I spoke in Orlando yesterday at a public appearance at the 2 p.m. meeting. I went to the Leesburg, John Christian, the mayor. Great brother. But I want you to know, I've spoken in front of you, Chairman Lee Constantine, before. But I have masks of the Senate from a Kathy Mears, who's the chief of staff. Everybody runs under her. But I'm working directly with Chris Smalls and the House Speaker.
Who's going to leave?
And
I got to go too.
okay, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. We could hardly hear you, but thank you very much. Yeah, we have no control over the state legislature. Wish we did.
Can we call a question?
We have a question, voted second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, passes. We will now recess and reconvene at 1:30. Thank you very much.